Now here we are. Former U.S. President Donald Trump arrested, charged, fingerprinted, and had his mugshot taken for the alleged crimes that he committed in Fulton County. And it is not just that this is a significant day because a former president is having all these charges brought against him, because a former president now is facing all these charges, has been brought in and has been processed like a criminal. But the sheer magnitude of everything that's going on right now and the media circus that everything has been. Now, as I record this, the media coverage of his detention and all that, his processing, has just ended. And it was going for quite a few hours until he actually had all this happen to him. And it was nonstop speculation, talking about this, the ramifications, how unprecedented this is, etc., which is very typical for a 24-hour news channel, regardless of what political stripe it has, because, well, they have to fill 24 hours of news with, you know, not talking about things that maybe would also be really important, like, say, the fact that the Panama Canal is, like, desperately low of water. And ships can't get a lot of shipments through. If you look up a lot of prescription medications, they're short because they can't get through the Panama Canal because of a lack of water, because of non-existent global warming, right? The ongoing genocide campaign of Israel against Palestinians, also something that could be talked about. But these are things that normally really aren't mentioned. It has to be Trump, because Trump equals ratings. Sensationalism equals ratings. Always has, always will. But the question really is, and the question that several people have asked me, look, what do you really think about all of this? Well, I mean, aside from the fact that it is very unprecedented that a president would be in this situation, it's also very telling. There are many presidents who've done things astronomically worse than this. Iran-Contra was worse than this. The bombing of Hiroshima was worse than this. Not to mention many of the crimes committed against Native Americans on the orders of the U.S. president. The drone striking of wedding parties that were authorized by then President Barack Obama. And yeah, the drone strikes had to be signed off by the president. But this is the one that actually gets a president into trouble. Well, to say nothing of George Bush's entire political career. Because what Trump did is very different. He posed a threat to the system. And it's not the, oh, you see, Trump is like the anti-establishment guy, and therefore everything, he's challenging the system or something, and if we vote for him, everything is going to change or something. No. Trump is regarded as a wild card, a loose cannon, someone who is not trustworthy, someone who is considered politically unstable, because he doesn't have much control, doesn't have a filter, and frankly, doesn't actually know what he's doing. And that kind of uncertainty is not what the ruling class is looking for. That is not something the bourgeoisie want in the Oval Office. The man who is supposed to represent their interests, the man whose job it is to navigate the contradictions between the various groups of ruling class and their interests. Trump is unstable. He'll just do this, do that, whatever. Today I'll listen to this guy's advice. Today I'll listen to that guy's advice. And tomorrow I won't listen to anybody and just do whatever comes off the top of my head. And that kind of instability is dangerous, particularly for the market, particularly for the profit motive of the market in general, because they don't know what's going to happen. Not to mention that he didn't want to do anything against Putin in Ukraine simply because they were friends, not because he was an anti-imperialist, like assassinating Soleimani and moving the capital, moving the U.S. Embassy in Israel. Both very anti-imperialist moves, right? But merely because he liked the guy, probably because they talked a lot and enjoyed each other's company. Well, that's not how politics is carried out. You've got interests to look out for. That's no different for socialism than it is for capitalism or bourgeois democracy. And Trump's continual inconsistency in that field is what has made him so reviled by the ruling class, and why the ruling class does want him prosecuted. Look at the charges he's facing. They're all racing to get these through before the next election, because they want a conviction before that time in order to disqualify him. And there are some elements of the bourgeoisie that certainly do want to defend him and want him even to go back into office, because he still can represent them. Even as an authoritarian, essentially a fascist, that's what he is. Make no mistake, he did try to overthrow the election in his favor. There's nothing but an astronomical amount of proof that that's exactly what he did, and couldn't stand the fact that he had lost. Even though he would have been such a fascist leader, he still would have carried out the interests of some bourgeoisie who wouldn't have cared, as long as they got what they wanted. Probably a lot of Bible stuff shoved down the throats of the public, and a lot more tax breaks, and probably dismantling Social Security and stuff like that. But there are other sections of the bourgeoisie that can't stomach it. Because one of the important things for America, one of the more important things for the U.S. empire in general, is the facade of freedom and democracy. The whole thing that America has been saying since day one is that we are the beacon of freedom and democracy. We are the world's first democracy. Well, no, you're not. The French Revolution actually was, and America was never really a democracy. It actually always was representation only by the elite, and there's a substantive argument that could be made there that isn't within the confines of this video, unless, of course, you're a Marxist and you already understand what a bourgeois democracy actually is. But America always had to have that veneer of freedom and democracy, because that's what it was all about, even though it was founded on the very opposite. It was founded by people who were angry because they couldn't force their religion onto other people in England. So they came over to the so-called New World, and, well, you know what happened next. They systematically genocided the population that already lived there, and then went on to do several hundred years of slavery, because it's the land of the free and democracy. The great irony is that America was always trying to be the very thing it is that they said that they were against, the very thing it is that they were trying to escape when they left England. They always were that. They were just waiting for their opportunity to do it. But that veneer of being the champions of freedom and democracy was always what the regular person had to hold on to, no matter how bad things were. Even the some odd 7 million people who died during the Great Depression, the great failure of capitalism in the Dust Bowl that just got mysteriously swept under the rug and forgotten about in U.S. history textbooks. Well, not forgotten, they were just never added. Because they've always had that, no matter what. America is a democracy, it's freedom, and you can vote to change things. Unless, of course, some egomaniac comes along and tries to overthrow the entire system for himself. And then you've lost that illusion. If Trump had actually succeeded, and he had managed to install himself as a dictator, which he would have done, that entire philosophy would have been torn away. No matter what, at the very end, it was always, well, America's still a democracy, even if the person you didn't like won. There's still going to be another vote, and that's what America is great for, even though it really isn't a democracy. It's a bourgeois democracy. That was almost gone. That veneer that you have a choice was almost gone. And that's all America really has left. You know damn well that voting for someone isn't, or not voting for someone isn't going to affect their policies. I mean, how much of a fool do you have to be at this point to vote blue no matter who and think that's actually going to change anything? It's not. It never does. It never will, because it's not supposed to. And that's always been the point. The bourgeoisie have always ruled. I know it may seem like a bit of a shock, but capital always seems to come out on top of capitalism. And this isn't just something that the Democrats do. This is something that the Republicans do. Oh, just vote Trump, and it'll change now. We'll own the libs by installing a dictator and doing the opposite, and doing the very thing it is that you're always accusing the liberals of trying to do. Remember all that stuff that came out about how Obama was going to be a terrible dictator? He was going to have the FEMA camps opened up, and all the Christians were going to disappear in the middle of the night because Barack Hussein Obama was going to have all the Christians taken away and persecuted. And at least according to one lady, famously said in an interview in Ohio, the blacks are going to take over. And you keep falling for it. Now, liberals and conservatives, I expect them to fall for that. That's what they do. That's why you have the false choice of liberal and conservative. That's why left was created, to counter both of these right-wing ideologies. So if you're a leftist and you still don't understand that, you really think that if you vote blue no matter who, the system's going to change, or if you vote Trump, somehow things are going to change, you're deluding yourself. Reform or revolution was decided over 100 years ago. The fact that you're over 100 years behind in ideology speaks volumes about how far behind an ideology you are. Never mind trying to create some kind of new theory for the new material conditions. You can't even catch up to 100 years ago. Okay, even if you do this whole, MAGA communism, which is one of the most absurd things I've ever heard in my entire life, that those who think America already is a socialist dictatorship and is taken over and forcing your kids to be gay, or whatever kind of conspiracy theory you've got in your head right now, to turn around and essentially tell them to vote for the thing it is that they're fighting against, that's not going to work. And in fact, that has historically always failed. But the reason why they keep doing it, the reason why there's still a vote blue no matter who, if we just vote for the Democrats this time, we'll get we'll get our little goodies, what was her name? Crystal Ball, essentially just pushing fascism. As long as we get our goodies, as long as we get our nice little reforms that will make us happy, we don't really care what happens. Why do you think this keeps occurring over and over again? Anybody with even a modicum of sense should have seen this with Obama when he was elected the first time. I saw it. I saw that it wasn't going to change, and there were so many Marxists still running around saying, "Oh, we're going to get the universal health care." No, you're not. You still don't have it. You're never going to get it. Just a bit of a side tangent. Do you know what it took to get universal health care in Canada? They literally had to almost practically break the entire electoral system to get somebody who was a socialist but didn't have a socialist name in their party, because it was illegal to get elected, and then the federal government tried to bankrupt the entire province, that being Saskatchewan, in order to get it. There literally had to be violence in the streets, and people got killed for the right to be able to see a doctor. And this is Canada we're talking about. And you think America is just going to give it to you? The ruling elite of America is just going to give it to you if you vote for somebody in? No, that ain't happening. The reason they keep falling for this, both the left and the right, is because you don't have anything else. There is no genuine grassroots movement of the left in the United States. And there's none on the right either. There is no big revolutionary base or revolutionary mass in the first world to draw from. And you know that. You know there's no great big huge proletariat just waiting to rise up, which is why you latch on to the Oliver Anthony Southerner anti-black song guy who, by the way, I'm now am convinced that he was an industry plant from the beginning. I didn't think he was before, but I'm pretty convinced that he is now. Like he's basically the Coney 2012 of music. All of a sudden, this massive, huge sensation overnight just appears out of nowhere. He's a pure plant. And pushing the evil northerners and the black people who don't want to work and leech all the welfare. A perfectly conservative view, but not one befitting a Marxist. Or even one of anybody who claims to believe in Jesus Christ. Because you know how many times Jesus Christ shit on the poor, right? And I'm pretty sure Jesus was pro in support of the poor. I shouldn't have to quote from the Bible to tell you that. There is no great, right-wing militia that's about to do 1776 all over again, and there's going to rise up and whatever 1776 all over again is supposed to do. I'm not even really sure at this point. Alex Jones fell for the same thing. Look at everything he did with the Ron Paul revolution, and that was absolutely nothing. It was nothing. It was literally nothing. It was the same thing. It was reform over revolution, and he fell for it. Turn around again. He did the same thing with Trump. Fell for it. Thought, oh, well, no, I'm Charlie Brown. I'm going to kick the football again. And the left does the same thing. You keep looking for a stand-in proletariat that's somehow going to take the place of the workers, and then you're going to seize the means of production. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but most of the means of production isn't even in America anymore. It's in China. It's in Honduras. It's in India. It's all around the world now in the global capital situation that we find. What capital, what means of production are you going to seize here? There's some. I don't doubt that. But the main economic drivers, the vast majority of the light industry, it's not even here. It's in other countries. And that's even if you can get these people to go along with you, which they're not going to. And you've got a significant portion of them that already think that America's a socialist country because, well, literally because Joe Biden, or literally because Democrat. All the meanwhile, Native and black struggle get ignored. Because this conflicts with the American idea. The idea that is America. The people that aren't really included with the idea of America, that have always been excluded from it. And that's what you can do in the first world, but you don't want to. You don't want to do anything to help black and Native people. You don't want to do anything to help lumpen people. The people who actually have nothing to lose. Who could potentially be organized into a force. Because they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. But you ignore those people. You ignore the lumpen because, some remark that Marx gave that turned out to be completely wrong. And as for the black and Native thing, literally you're just racist. Like, there's really no point to ignoring either of those struggles, which are perfectly valid unless you literally are just racist. Because as sure as hell is nowhere else for you to go reasonably. So it's all going to happen again. Trump, maybe if he doesn't get convicted, which I sincerely doubt he won't. He's going to get convicted. Some other guy is going to take his place. Some other guy who's totally anti-woke, and that's going to be his only selling point, the fact that he's anti-woke, and that's going to be the reason you support him. The fact that he's anti-woke is going to come in there. He's going to make all the promises to do all the different stuff and then not do it. He's going to reopen the coal mines like Trump said he was going to, and then didn't. Do all the things that they're going to do, and then didn't. To be fair, Trump did get 3 people onto the Supreme Court. He did get Roe v. Wade overturned. Did get some things done. But if you voted him for those things and you're a Marxist, it's really time for you to stop calling yourself a Marxist, because you kind of just outed yourself with that. The fact that Americans cannot get past reform or revolution this far past every single failed experiment in doing it is astounding. And that is only reflective of the fact that they know there's nowhere else to go. They don't have anything else. There's nothing else for them to latch onto. There is no movement. There is no soon-to-be uprising, etc. And we even see this to some degree in the third world. Christina, what's her name, who was allied to Chavez. Nicolas Maduro, the guy who took Evo Morales' place. Well, what are they really doing? They're doing social democracy. They're not even doing socialism. And then when you can't get them to do socialism because they're reformists, not revolutionaries, people start changing the definition of what socialism is in order to justify continuing to support someone who isn't a socialist. Oh, no, now socialism is when you do very mild economic reforms. Hey, you can see a doctor now. Yeah, we're literally doing communism now, guys. Now, I'm not saying these people are bad. I'm not saying Christina, what can't remember her name, Evo Morales or Nicolas Maduro are bad. I'm saying they're not good enough. And that's the problem. It's always, yeah, well, that's what we have. Yeah, well, that's all we got. Oh, yeah, well, all we got is revisionist China. All we've got is Russian imperialism. Well, that's all we've got right now. Did you notice that? Did you notice the problem is that that's all we've got is continually the refrain that we get because we don't have anything. And you can't fix a problem until you admit that it exists. And that's the problem in and of itself. The left doesn't want to admit how bad things are. It doesn't want to admit that there really isn't much of a severe resistance. You can talk about some places in Africa. You can talk about the Naxals. You could talk about the NPA in the Philippines. But these are still very small compared to what should be, what our actual duty to do is. They're pulling their weight. What are we doing? And the whole point of all of this, the whole point of, the supporting Trump when you claim to be a leftist, when really all it is being anti-woke, which is another way of saying that you're a homophobe, or vote blue no matter who, is to just keep up that illusion. And that's the point. You don't have anything that you can do. You don't have a movement, so you pretend there is one. You pretend there's something you can do. First world people are not going to pick up a gun and sacrifice their lives in a fight to bring communist revolution. You ask any American, they'll laugh in your face. I have seen this over and over again. I watched the LLCO recruit people, and they'll say, so you're ready to die for the revolution, you're ready to fight? Yeah, let's go. Let's do this. I'm willing to die. Okay, can you start by just giving like $20 a month? Oh, what's that money going to? Can I get an itemized list of everything that it gets spent on? Well, I'm kind of short of money this month, so, I'm not really sure if I can afford... You're willing to die for the revolution, allegedly, but you can't throw down pocket change to an org. And I'm sure it's not just the LLCO that had that problem. I'm pretty sure that's a problem across many organizations. The point is, until you're willing to look in the mirror and honestly see the real objective situation, the real objective material conditions, and then formulate a theory based on that, you're not going to do anything. And until then, all you're doing is building cults of personality around online personalities, no matter who they are. And that's as far as it goes. And meanwhile, you've got people like the Arizona Rebellion and whatnot, and then you've got other revolutionary groups that are on the streets actually doing things that don't have YouTube channels, that don't have social media, that are trying to do something, even if they are small things, that don't get any support because they're not some loudmouth asshole shooting their mouth off on the internet, even though they're the ones actually doing something. But that's just the way it is. And everybody just gets mad at you if you point this out. They don't want to recognize how bad it is. They just want to get angry. But they don't want to do anything. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.